Hello, class. Sage again. I'll be talking about chapter 2 on Schumacher. Uh, just like to start with the peace and permits thing. Okay. His first kind of argument is about greed and envy. So, throughout human society and our global society, and America in general, greed and envy is what has pushed us to the point that we are at. That is to say that consumers will consume, producers will produce, and that greed and envy, so greed and envy, let's say wanting more cash, has made the tech that we have now. So it's not based on trying to make society better, it's based on trying to make more money. And that's an argument in itself. Now, he kind of says that this greed and envy has caused a rift, right? So what's up with all the pollution? What's up with all this, okay? So the way I like to think about it is, okay, you have an ocean, right? And this is us right now, okay? Our head's right here, our neck, kind of elongated body. Some arms, you got maybe one arm out, one arm below. Not really any life, that's nothing going on, okay? So below the surface is pollution, fossil fuels, anything along those sorts of lines that we're talking about there. So, pollution. Now, as a society where we're at right now, or as he was arguing in the 1970s, I feel like we've gotten a little bit better, is that we have decided that we can live like this. This is the way we want to sustain our society, to live with just our heads above destruction, okay? What Schumacher, I pronounce his name differently, what he says is that why aren't we just sitting here on a raft on the ocean? It's possible, like we could do this. But instead, we decide to create other sources of energy instead of good sources of energy. And we sit here and we never leave. But when we're just about to drown, we create something so we can just keep our heads afloat. Instead of creating something like a raft that keeps our heads and body and our future children's and our future grandchildren's bodies ahead of this water all the time. So that's one of his starting arguments about pollution and stuff. So we kind of allow this. He then goes on to dismantle some other arguments that universal prosperity doesn't work under the current morality that we view. So greed and envy will never create universal prosperity. Okay, he breaks down it can happen with that. He also breaks down some science and tech, but since the 1970s, I don't agree so much with it. And he talks about trickle-down economics a bit. So if you don't know what trickle-down economics is, it's essentially the 1%, or the big businesses, corporations, right? They get tax breaks, so this 1% gets all these breaks, right? And in the short run, they will benefit, right? So the short run, little arrow, they will benefit. But in the long run, so the long arrow, should trickle down and boost the economy. That's the really basics of trickle-down economics. He argues for that. He doesn't argue for that. He argues against that. The next thing I would talk about, I'm gonna erase this real quick, is the rich and poor aspect. So you can see this through communism. You can see this through Vietnam, Latin America. The rich are essentially afraid of the poor. The rich are also afraid of the rich, but most likely they are afraid of the poor because there are more poor people, obviously, than there are rich people. So if you want a good source for American rebellion, probably Shays Rebellion would be a good one. So Shays Rebellion is after the war, and the elitists decided that they wanted their money back that they lent for the war, and they were going to take it and tax all of the workers. Well, the workers didn't really agree with that, and they rebelled. Now, it was stifled very easily. It was very easy to stifle. But it got the founding fathers thinking, we need a very strong central government. We need these businesses to protect our interests so that these can never happen. That's essentially the rich fearing the poor in America. There are other examples of this. The Red Scare, everything like that. And so he also touches on humanism and nature. So going back to the greed and the envy thing, you can kind of break down the humanism and nature aspect. So is it inherently human that we're like this? Or is it the natural environment that we are put into? So it's kind of the Lockean perspective, you could argue, the blank slate theory. So are we born a blank slate where everything in our environment affects us? So the systems that we are created within affect us in creating that greed and envy? Or are we inherently, as humans, like kind of crappy people? Are we just consumers, or is it the system? So that's an argument that I enjoy thoroughly. So please leave your thoughts below about that. And then I want to he did touch on God too. So tell me what you guys thought about that, because I got really confused about that. I didn't know really where he was going with that. But what I really wanted to talk about is, let me get this real quick. I know it's chalk. What I really want to talk about is the idea of the technology. That really struck me, and I think that it's a very interesting point. Technology as in small machines. He argues for smaller machines, not these big giant manufacturing machines, and smaller businesses, not big giant corporations. And I would say that this might be happening right now, and has happened. So if anybody can take a guess, start writing it, you can say it. Internet, right? So the internet, I would argue, has helped small businesses greatly. Okay, you got Etsy, you got Society6, you got eBay, Craigslist, you got all of these entities that help small businesses, right? So, in a regular, where in the 1970s corporations, right, they would create a product. So this is the product, okay? Products are going this way towards the consumer, okay? And if the consumer doesn't use all the products, what happens? There's a surplus, okay? And if the consumer uses them all and wants more, there's a shortage on demand. And what the internet has done for small businesses, what they couldn't have done before, is they create something with this product, right? It happens on demand. So People ordering the product illicitly tell you how much they want. So you make it on demand, which really helps small businesses. Because what happened before was these corporations could take the hit if they created a bigger surplus. Or, a shortage. I don't know if that's really a problem, but because you would just create more if you're a big business, but small businesses take longer, right? But with the internet, Etsy or Society6 or something like that, the small business will get the demand for the products from the consumer and then create that said product, eliminating surplus, eliminating shortage, and it's a heck of a lot easier, and it's free. Yeah, it's free. And you can see these small machines, people working on them. A good example would be a 3D printer. They're getting more cheaper. As we keep going into society, they're getting even cheaper. We're starting to use these things. Another one would be blockchain. I don't know if a lot of you guys know what blockchain is. From blockchain is Bitcoin. Essentially how a blockchain, I won't get into how a blockchain works. If we want to discuss how blockchain works, certainly you can shoot down below a question about blockchain and I'll be sure to answer it for you. There's many YouTube videos for it as well. But essentially, he makes a lot of different arguments about smaller businesses. He makes arguments for the rich and the poor, humanism versus nature, God, which was very confusing for me, and as I just touched on, technology. So that is the mini things that I learned in chapter 2. A cool thing that I listened to was his cow story, which is essentially he was in economics and he would go out and he would count the cows. So there was 32 cows and he would count them every day. Well, the farmer came up and he said, instead of counting the cows, you should check on their well-being and that would help you gain more cows. As an economist, he thought it was kind of stupid until when the cows died and he realized the farmer was right, that we can't look at quantitative numbers. We have to look at the quality of those numbers, if that makes sense. We can't just look at the GDP or the gross domestic product and think that everything is great. We have to actually look at where that's going and how that is affecting our society. So some questions I would have for you is, in the future, from now, how is technology going to affect small businesses? How is it going to affect large corporations? Or has it already? And do you agree with this? Do you think that we should move towards more smaller businesses and less larger corporations controlling the vast amount of wealth? I hope this was helpful. Thank you for listening, and I will hear you guys on the other videos and the comments below. Have a great night. Thank you.